Hey, this is Zachlog the Great, and I am here tonight with my friend Nate.
Ni hao.
And we are joined by author Frank Luke.
Hello.
And we are whose picture seems frozen at the moment. All right, well, hopefully the camera will catch up. Anyway, and we are getting together tonight to talk about Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's. Do I have it? Yeah, I was stuck on the name for a second. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem, "The Village Blacksmith." So Nate has volunteered to read that for us in a moment. Before he does that, I did want to say, as usual, if you like my channel, if you like my work, you can support me through Subscribestar. For as little as between $1 and $5 a month. That is subscribestar.com/Zachlug-the-great, and the link is going to be in the show description. So, having said that, Nate has volunteered to read the poem for us. I'm going to put it up on the screen, and one moment. There we go. Let me know when you guys can see that.
I can see it.
My
Okay.
visuals are really weird, so I can't see anything. Go with Frank.
Okay. So go for it.
Village Blacksmith by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Under a spreading chestnut tree, the village smithy stands. The smith, a mighty man is he, with large and sinewy hands. And the muscles of his brawny arms are strong as iron bands. His hair is crisp and black and long. His face is like the tan. His brow is wet with honest sweat, and he earns whate'er he can, and looks the whole world in the face, for he owes not any man. Week in, week out, from morn till night, you can hear his bellows blow. You can hear him swing his heavy sledge with measured beat and slow, like a sexton ringing the village bell when the evening sun is low. And children coming home from school look in at the open door. They love to see the flaming forge and hear the bellows roar and catch the burning sparks that fly like chaff from a threshing floor. He goes on Sunday to the church and sits among his boys. He hears the parson pray and preach. He hears his daughter's voice singing in the village choir, and it makes his heart rejoice. It sounds to him like her mother's voice, singing in paradise. He must needs think of her once more, how in the grave she lies, and with his hard, rough hand he wipes a tear out of his eyes. Toiling, rejoicing, sorrowing, onward through life he goes. Each morning sees some task begin, each evening sees it close. Something attempted, something done, has earned a night's repose. Thanks, thanks to thee, my worthy friend, for the lesson thou hast taught. Thus at the flaming forge of life our fortunes must be wrought. Thus on its sounding anvil shaped each burning deed and thought.
Okay, thank you. All right, and there we go. Okay, so, Frank, as the guest and the one without a cracker in his mouth, would you like to start off? Would you like to lead off tonight with your first thoughts on the poem?
My first thoughts on the poem. Well, I happen to have met a couple of blacksmiths about July 13th or 14th. Was really kind of neat. They were, I was at the Camporama for the Royal Rangers, our national camp out every 4 years. And they had a group of FCF men there. FCF men are, they're a subset of Royal Rangers, but they're hardcore campers. And they go, they will dress the part of frontiersmen and they will each learn a frontiers era trade. And there were 2 blacksmiths that I talked to during the week. They were actually demonstrating the forge and teaching some of the boys how to blacksmith basics. They went by the names of Crazy Wolf and Red Fox. That's an FCF tradition that you take a frontier's name. And it was really neat to watch them work the bellows in the forge, and the boys all got to do a bit of each job, take turns. And Red Fox kept working the gospel into his presentation. Well, he was talking about the coal and the fire. He said, now this is burning at about 3,000 degrees. He said, you take this iron, and it's pretty useless right now. It's just an iron rod. But when I stick it in that fire, the impurities are going to be burned out of it, and we're going to be able to shape it. He said, and that's how God has to work our lives. Because we have all that crud in them, and only his fires can get rid of it. And then he has to pound us into shape with a hammer.
Gotcha.
No, it's actually really interesting. There's something my wife and I do that we've done for 5 or 6 years now. And that's toward the beginning of every year, we prayerfully consider, we ask the Lord, give us a word, like just a single word for the year, and for something that, we'll be able to focus on all that. And a few years ago, my word was forging. And I realized that what it was going to be was God beating the crap out of me to make me something he could use. And so, yeah, your example just put me straight in mind of that. And it's actually a point that I was planning to make later, was that, yeah, to have something made of us or make something of ourselves, we have to go through a lot of, let's say, uncomfortable times, painful times, get smacked around a bit. But in the end, it leaves us hardened up in a good shape.
Hard times make strong men. So what was I have to say, like, my first thing when I read this and think about this poem, it actually reminds me of it seems closely linked to one by Robert W. Service, which was Dirt. And Nate talked about that one with me. Frank, if you haven't read that one, you should definitely. I just realized it's kind of hard to find. You can find it online, but it's not. You have to poke around a lot. So as far as I know, the easiest thing to find is actually my performance. But both of them are basically in praise of just ordinary Joe, I guess would be the phrase. The guy who goes out there and he's not glamorous, he's not like recognized, or he's not rich. He just goes out, he does what needs to be done, and he's the guy who makes things run. If you want to talk about like Vox Day's socio-sexual hierarchy thing, it would be like this one more than that is like kind of an ode to deltas. I think would be a way to put this. They're the guy dependable. They take pride in their work, and they just go out and make and get things done, and they don't a lot of times get a ton of recognition, which is kind of unfortunate because basically they're the ones who keep things running. And Nate, you look like you had something to.
I'm not sure the village blacksmith quite fits that. Like he may not be like, super famous or like, have a whole lot of authority, but this is a man of skill. He is definitely a tradesman rather than a common laborer. And so he's going to get a bit more respect. People are going to know who he is, like he's the village blacksmith. You don't get a whole lot of smiths in one village because
No.
how much smithing do you need? So he is the one guy who does this job, and clearly he does it well and is a honorable man. So I think, like I said, he's not faceless. Like I said, he's not authoritative, but he's far from faceless.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because it's just like he does his work, he goes to church, he takes care of his family, and it's just like there's not in part, like, this is one of the ones that a little bit not bothers me. It feels like as a story, like it's kind of, if this were a story, it's kind of missing conflict, which makes things interesting. But at the same time, it's like there are these people, and they deserve recognition. And if all you do is say, look at this guy, he does good work, he takes care of his family, he holds up the town around him. He is doing his work, which everyone depends on, and he's at church. He's taking care of his kids. Like, what, we need guys like this, and that's definitely important in itself.
See, I don't see this as a story, that it doesn't require conflict because it's not a story. This is a portrait.
This is a slice of life poem. This is just a day in the life of the village blacksmith, or maybe a couple of days of life in his life.
Honestly, you never know what he did before he started smithing. I mean, this could be the epilogue to a story with tons of conflict. Or maybe it's the prologue. Maybe something comes that takes him out of his peaceful life, but just for now, this is who he is. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Louis L'Amour novel Bendigo Shafter, which I will admit is a very just odd title. It's the main character's name, but he's got a brother, Cain, and his brother is a blacksmith, and he is every inch Longfellow's blacksmith. He's a big, dependable, mighty man, and is always he's there. He's like the fulcrum around which the world turns for most of the people that are with him. And so, yeah, you can see Cain Shafter being this guy and then suddenly being uprooted and moved, to the edge of the Rockies, where he then gets planted again and just continues on just like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, man, I love guys like this.
It's it also actually reminds me a little bit of and what is it? I think the Babylon Bee kind of made a joke out of this every time they bring him up, and I do the same a good bit. But there's in G.K. Chesterton, there's actually a section where he talks about smiths and what almost magical beings they were back in the day. The book is Heretics, and here I'm gonna read just a little bit. This is from his chapter about Rudyard Kipling, which is also fascinating because, like, seeing two people I really appreciate argue with each other. I love Chesterton and I love Kipling both, and seeing like the two of them in conflict, it's kind of interesting watching something like that play out. But anyway. Even the village children feel that in some dim way the smith is poetic, as the grocer and the cobbler are not poetic, when they feast on the dancing sparks and deafening blows in the cavern of that creative violence. The brute repose of nature, the passionate cunning of man, the strongest of earthly metals, the weirdest of earthly elements, the unconquerable iron subdued by its only conqueror, the wheel and the plowshare, the sword and the steam hammer, the arraying of armies and the whole legend of arms. All these things are written briefly indeed, but quite legibly, on the visiting card of Mr. Smith. And so, yeah, it's in fact, here, wait a second. It's actually, I kind of actually wonder, it's entirely possible, given the chronology, that Chesterton got a little bit of that, portrait from from Longfellow's poem. I do not know how widely read Longfellow was a little over 100 years ago.
He was very popular. One of America's top poets, even thought so during his lifetime. And he was unparalleled in publishing history in the United States. Oh my word! In 1874, he was being paid $3,000 per poem.
Go on.
That
that is a horse gagging sum of money back then.
That would be pretty nice today, actually. Wait, what year?
1874. He was earning $3,000 a poem.
I don't think the inflation calculator goes back that far. No, there's a wait. Oh wait, here's one that goes back that far. 1874. So $3,000. 1874. I'm rounding, but $78,000.
That'll do. That'll do.
My word.
You can make a living on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also like in here, he looks the whole world in the face, for he owes not any man. Given our conversation just before the recording about how, talking about how debt makes you a slave to your debtor.
Mm-hmm.
Or to your lender. Debtor's the person who owes you money. God dang it, Nathaniel. How could you forget such simple words? I'm going to have to go flagellate myself after this. Anyway, but yeah, like I said, I just think this is, the quintessential portrait of, honestly, like the Platonic ideal of a man. Strong, he's skilled, his body is hardened, his mind is disciplined, but his heart is soft.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a heart of gold and a frame of iron. And, said he's honest, and like I said, he is the ideal yeoman, which I think is the perfect form that a free man should take. And so I just, like I said, he's got everything, well, I guess except for his wife, which is sad, but yeah, I mean, this is, like I said, you can build paradise out of men like this.
Yeah. Well, this poem there's very likely some autobiography in the section about his wife's death, because he wrote this a couple of years after his first wife died.
Well, and I don't know the actual numbers, but like from just from kind of things I've gathered, like basically women dying in childbirth was not terribly uncommon, basically up until mid 20th century, as far as I know. There's a lot of things our medicine seems to have gotten badly wrong recently, but keeping mothers and kids alive is something we've actually gotten pretty good at. And
If it weren't
and
for medicine, my wife would have died giving birth to my first son.
yeah, so I am as someone with both a wife and kids, I'm glad that I got to have both. And it wasn't a one or the other situation. That's kind of nice. But yeah, like that's it's also kind of funny because I remember seeing like someone making jokes about Sherlock Holmes books, and like the Sherlock Holmes stories, and like Watson seems to have like a new wife like every fifth story or something, and so like someone was joking that he's actually a polygamist, and it's like, well, I don't know, I think Mr. Doyle may have lost track a little bit of some of the details himself, but also he probably was have had that kind of thing in mind, so back.
Yeah, my wife would have died probably by our second year of marriage, before our second anniversary, without modern medicine. She was diagnosed with cancer in our first year.
Well, getting right to the sickness and health, huh?
Yes.
But what was so to use the phrase, I think we are now contractually obligated to say this at least once during every recording. To get back to the poem, one thing
get a big
he
enough
says,
audience, that needs to be the first T-shirt.
Each morning sees some task begin, each evening sees it close. Something attempted, something done, has earned a night's repose. And I think that is a good way. That in itself is a good way to look at the world. It's like, you know what? I got up today. Before this day is done, I need to have done something that helps out someone other than me. Something more than just keep myself alive. And if I can say that, then I can go to bed tonight and sleep easy. And that's that's also something that a lot of people seem to have lost track of lately. And I think that's valuable.
Yeah.
Good tired and bad tired. There's good tired. There's bad tired when you're tired but you can't sleep because you really haven't done anything all day. And good tired where you're tired because you've accomplished things and you just sleep like the just.
I don't know if I've had one of these days since we've had kids, but I do remember before we had kids, like there is sometimes like nothing more exhausting than doing absolutely nothing. Like you really do nothing all day and you're like, I don't know, I'm really tired. What did you do? Nothing at all. I didn't do a bloody thing and I'm exhausted. I haven't had those in a while, but I remember that being a thing.
Yeah. Well, there's actually been like psychological studies that, like, especially things like office work are just, they're soul crushing precisely because you don't get to see a result. You go out and you spend all day stressing your mind, and then at the end of the day, it's like, hey, cool, there'll always be more emails and that kind of thing. Whereas, a construction worker goes home, he's like, oh yeah, we put up, another, we built the frame for this building 30 feet higher, or, I paved 1.5 miles of road today. It was great. Air conditioner guys get to go, yeah, I walked up and there's this, burned out piece of crap right here on the control board, and I popped that out and stuck another one in there, and now those people are cold.
I don't want to go into
character.
I don't want to go into a lot of detail about what it is, but I do have a more office worker type of job these days, and it is frustrating sometimes because it's like, sometimes I'm like, did I actually accomplish anything? Did I produce anything for anyone else, or was this all just a hamster in a wheel? And then before this job, a lot of work I've for several years at different places I've waited tables. And I look back at that and I'm like, when I waited tables, I took people's orders and I brought them their food and they got their food. And I know they got their food. It might not be much, it might not be a major accomplishment, but I could see that this was done. And there's something kind of satisfying in that is kind of frustratingly missing sometimes. And yeah, it's it having the kind of having the kind of job where you can very definitely see the results of your work, even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just an incremental thing each day, having that is definitely I definitely see the advantages of that kind of work.
I mean,
Yeah,
my
there
father
was.
on, I don't know how many times the phrase has come up. Yeah, I built 54 houses. I'm like, and every time it comes up, it's still impressive.
Yeah. The I still work for the same company, but in a different department. Some time back in the previous department, we had worked on a major project for the company, a major portion of the website, so that people could come in, or dealers could log in and register the machines that they had bought from us. And we spent like a year, 9 months to a year, building it and released it, got it out there. It was working wonderfully. And then my manager said a couple months later, we're going to be rebuilding this thing. We're going to be gutting it and rebuilding it in just a few months. I was like, what? What? That did not feel good.
Oh, I've been there. So I like also the last stanza because it makes a point, a very pointed point.
In
And
his
it says,
case, it could be a very literally pointed point.
mhm. Thanks to thee, my worthy friend, for the lesson thou hast taught. Thus at the flaming forge of life our fortunes must be wrought. Thus on its sounding anvil shaped each burning deed and thought. That right there. We must shape our thoughts and our deeds. I'm trying to teach my sons this, is that, guys, feelings are going to happen, but but you can't be controlled by these just fleeting momentary things. You have to shape how you want to feel. The Bible talks about it a lot, people instructing their soul in what to do,
Mm-hmm.
Bless the Lord, O my soul, is one of my favorite things. It's like, hey, I'm in this lion's den. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Because the soul wants to be like, this sucks. Gonna be a little angry right now, gonna hurl recrimination to heaven, but instead you overthrow it and you say, no, bless the Lord, O my soul. As said, they talk about, David talks about choosing to be joyful in many of his psalms. And said these are all choices you make. Joy is a choice. Peace is a choice. Circumstances are circumstances. They may militate for or against the choice you make about, the condition in which you're going to hold yourself. But in the end, you have to choose what state you want to allow.
Well, and that actually reminds me of something I do with my family. I'm not going to hold us up as some spotless example of spiritual discipline, but something I think we do right. At the end of every day, a little bit before bed, we'll say prayers, and then I think this was somewhere around a year ago. A year and maybe a year and a half ago, I started. We will each say something that we're thankful for from the day. It doesn't have to be big. I've said I'm thankful that while I was out bicycling today, I saw a hawk fly right in front of me. That was kind of cool to see. But each day, what's something today you're thankful for? What's something good today that you can thank God for? And it's just develop a habit of looking. Part of my goal with this is develop a habit of looking for good things, looking for things to be thankful for, because I don't know why we're built this way, but we definitely are. And if we don't fight it, what we will do is we look for things to complain about. Oh, this went wrong, and that went wrong, and this person is a jerk, and and my food, didn't my food didn't come out the way I wanted it to, and traffic was terrible today, and we complain and we complain and we complain, and if you let that be your mindset, two things: one, you are going to be miserable, and two, you are going to make everyone else miserable. And yeah, so you do have to, well, where is that? You do have to, seize and pound out each burning deed and thought. You do have to, take control, to deliberately take control of these things yourself, and say, this is what, and it's some days some days we get to the end of the day and I am in a rotten mood.
Yeah.
And like thinking, okay, something good today.
I didn't kill anyone, and I'm glad about that.
Yeah, it can be frustrating, but it's it's a good habit to learn.
Yeah, I was talking about that with one of my fellow ranger leaders while we were at Camporama, that oftentimes we will, right after an event, we will remember only the bad. And then as time goes on, we'll remember more and more of the good.
Well, and the other thing with that too, like it's the very things that frustrate us, that make us mad, that annoy us. Well, I mean, to a certain degree, that like years later, those are the things we're going to tell other people about. That end up that like hey, if some truly unfortunate series of events just screws up your day, then and you're looking for something to be thankful for, and then just say, hey, at least someday I'm gonna have a good story to tell about this, because
Sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, please finish your thought. I'll talk after.
Well, no, I was just saying, because like it is those things that like I said, they make good stories, and once you're clear of them, they're good to laugh about. So yeah, Nate.
I like to tell people about the series of calamity that was my honeymoon. We walked out of the church to get in my car, and I realized that this is like 105-degree day. It's like 130 in the car. My friends had put a bunch of like caution tape on the car and sprayed a bunch of silly string in it and been like, haha, without realizing that silly string was going to melt. and form like hard plastic stripes on the seat of my car forever. And that like the tape marks like actually like peeled some of the clear coat and like left residue on the windows. Like, oh, this is great. Thanks, guys. Then we're heading out for our honeymoon destination. We stopped at the store to grab some snacks. They're gonna be on the road for a few hours. I locked my keys in the car. We have been married for 30 minutes and we're already having to call my father-in-law to come bail us out of a bit of a situation. Then once that happens, we get on the road, get a call that her debit card has been stolen, so we cancel it, only to realize that is the card that our hotel was being paid off of when we check in. So now we have to call our mother-in-law, or my mother-in-law, to be like, hey, can we borrow some money? I'm like, this is the best. Turns out our hotel was under renovation, so there's, hammering and sawing all day. It rained every day we were there, and turns out my wife was allergic to the pillow, so her sinuses were exploding every moment we were in the hotel room. So yeah, it's like I was like, man, devil really didn't want us to get married. Oh man, but all of that, and I managed to nearly blow the engine in my car driving around the town. So yeah, it was just like one thing after another, and all we can do is laugh about it now, because it's just like, hey, 12 years on, we're better than ever. Love it.
Well, and it's and for me, ours wasn't nearly as much, but like we got married, and I was doing something earlier that morning, halfway across the city, and this was a large city, so it was like 45-minute drive normally. And then like on the way there, we got a flat tire on the way to from where I was earlier that morning to the wedding, and I was like, are we gonna be on time? Am I gonna be late for this? If I'm late for this, am I going to be murdered?
That's the question.
And one of the first things we did as a married couple was we had to go out and buy a new tire. So okay. But like I said, it's now you have a story to tell, and it's not fun at the time, but if everything went right, what do you tell? What do you talk about? So
yeah. We did not have a disaster the day of the wedding, but the night of the rehearsal, the piano player couldn't get off work, and so he was way late, but he needed to be part of the rehearsal. So 45 minutes to an hour late, and then that pushed the rehearsal dinner back. Our reservation was considered abandoned. That was all minor, though my wife was mad at him for a long time afterwards, a really long time. But coming back from the honeymoon, that was where the comedy of errors began. Was the rental car got there fine, but when we got to the airport, they just put all the rental cars were diverted into one area, and then you grabbed all your stuff and you went just booking for the airport. Well, there was a storm. We were supposed to go from Pennsylvania to Chicago to Des Moines. No, Pennsylvania to Chicago to Springfield, Missouri, but there was a storm over Chicago, so we had to go we were going to be rerouted from Pennsylvania to Philadelphia to Atlanta to Dallas to Springfield. But because of that, everybody was being rerouted on those runways, and we had no more than gotten in the air when the pilot came on and said, guys, because we were in line so long, we're low on fuel, but if I got out of line to go refuel, we would still be there for another couple of hours. We would have had to get in the back of the line. So when we get to Atlanta, we will have to refuel, and that will delay us then. Oh, we landed in Dallas, and we changing planes. We had to make it all the way across Dallas-Fort Worth Airport in like 40 minutes. We landed at D, and we had to, like, D35 was the gate, and we had to make it all the way around this U back to A17. And the tram was not working that night, so it was a hoof it.
Yeah, that's pretty good hoof. Been to DFW a couple of times. In like the 4 flights I've ever been on, but yeah, I think 3 of them went to DFW. Big old place. Oh man, just yeah. You see, this is the kind of poetry that boys need to read.
Well, that's actually this was in I pulled it from this selection here, or from this. Where is it? Arg. I need to see the camera.
A little
So,
more.
yes, this
there
is,
you go.
So I found this at a used bookstore, and I got several selections from there, and you know, anything that anything that, like, you know, feminists will cringe at the mere name of it, you know, that can't be bad.
I couldn't see it. What was the name of it?
The collection is Poems for Patriarchs: The Verse and Prose of Christian Manhood. So
oh, I gotta get me one of those.
That is such a triggering title.
That's what I really do love, the line where it says, you know, or the little thing there says, he goes on Sunday to the church and sits among his boys. Because yeah, I'm like, okay, the crisp black hair, you know, he goes ahead and smooths it down, puts on his go-to-meeting clothes, and yeah, he's there with, you know, the next generation of strength that he is raising. And it's just like, I don't have crisp black hair, but you know, I get to go to church and sit among my boys. Going to be a half dozen strong army here the end of the year.
Wow. Yeah, that's a misjudgment, I think, that Longfellow had. He was writing these poems, but he didn't like it that boys were so fond of them. He wanted to be shaping the minds of men. But when you're...
When do you think you get to shape a man's mind?
That's exactly right. You shape a mind when it's young. When it's, you know, when it's our age, it's not going to be changed very easily. But that young age, you can really steer them in the right direction.
Or wrong.
Or wrong. Raise up a man in the way he should go, and when he's old, raise up a boy when he's in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it.
And keep, if there's any way you can manage it, keep your kids out of public schools, for God's sake.
Hashtag homeschool or die.
Yeah, that too. I don't.
Hashtag doing both of those things simultaneously.
I don't. I don't think, you know, the one I went to was, you know, fantastic, but like they weren't. I did, you know, private Christian schools for a few years, and then my parents had to put us in public school, and, like, you know, I don't think that it was, you know, the most fantastic experience, but I don't think it was nearly as destructive as they seem to be today.
Yeah.
I don't. I don't know at what point things started going quite so badly downhill, but, you know, things I'm hearing, it's pretty awful.
It's when a bunch of single women started becoming teachers.
Anyway, so let's see. I'm trying to see. One thing I kind of find interesting about just the physical description of the village blacksmith, um, and I'm also kind of piecing this out myself. I'm um, the muscles of his brawny arms are strong as iron bands. His hair is crisp and black and long. His face is like the tan. Um, I'm kind of trying to guess for myself here, but I'm guessing his face is like the tan. I think he'd be like tanned leather. Is that what either of you would, how either of you would, kind of parse that?
Yeah, basically.
From the heat.
Yeah, and so it's kind of interesting because like you see the marks of his work on him, both the positive, like, someone who does the kind of work he does, they're going to have some muscles on him. But also someone who does the kind of work he does, he's going to he's going to have, tough, browned, leathery skin, probably going to have a couple of burn marks on him here or there. And like you see both of those in this character, and I think that's an interesting element of description that's like it's not like kind of hammered on. It's not like, hey, look at this, but it's just worked in very well. And also like, okay, you know he the children come to see him. Like the kids love the kids love watching him work because it's just fascinating, like seeing this guy with fire and a hammer and red hot metal and sparks flying. um and also like he goes to church. He takes part in this part of the community life. And also like where is it, like a sexton ringing the village bell when the evening sun is low. Like he is, like, just the sound of his work is a part of the life of the community, and is a it like everything he does is building up and strengthening and reassuring those around him. And there's it's easy to read this as just a it's easy to do a very basic, shallow reading of this, but I think there are, you know, deeper elements if you take the time to look.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could think about the way he holds the town together is also the way his work would, making straps and nails and pegs and things, just stuff to put framework together. I mean, so in a way, what you're talking about, he literally is sort of a fasten, something the town is fastened around and built up with. And also, again, his work does that. It literally holds the town together.
Mm-hmm. He's the one who makes the horseshoes that they need, and the nails, and everything's going to come through him.
Okay, so I don't know. I kind of think I've covered most of what I wanted to say here. Um, Nate, is there anything else any other points you wanted to hit on before we close out for tonight?
Just want to reiterate that this is the calling of a man. Is strength of purpose and of person. Wisdom and skill, and being open also to tenderness. That it's a balance that we all have to strike as we're trying to develop our manhood, especially if we have any young men watching. It says you have to balance all these things, and it's difficult, and it takes a lot of beating and shaping and hard times, discomfort, and just outright pain sometimes to do it, but it is all worth it to develop yourself into something more than just, a bundle of emotions or apathy. It says
Well,
it takes no strength to give into feelings, but it also doesn't take any strength not to feel anything. So you have to cultivate your strength, learn to hear and understand how you feel, but also to master it when need be, and then you can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the other thing with that, goes with that, and this is something, if I can sufficiently organize my thoughts at some point, I should do a video on. But like, well, I guess I kind of already have. But like I remember hearing people talk about like, you know, recent arguments about abortion, and like there was some news commenter, I can't remember her name, but she said like, and you look at, even in my family, and there's this, not, two of my nieces have like autism or this or that or Down syndrome or something, and it's just like, did you just say you wish that niece was never born? Because in this context, that kind of sounds like what you said.
Well, that's exactly the argument they make.
Yeah.
Oh no, these
Well,
children
and
are going to have hard lives. Is hardship worse than death?
well, and
Is
the thing,
is obliteration preferable to difficulty? Because if you believe that, why are you here?
well, and the thing is, and I remember, the people who were talking about, who like were talking about this, were like, kind of like horrified and mystified, and I'm like, I don't agree with her, but I totally understand where this comes from, because if you don't have some kind of, transcendent meaning, if there is not more to life than, just what you experience, you know, physical, transitory, happiness and transitory, suffering and pain, like if there isn't more to life than that, then like suffering, that then pain itself kind of is the greatest evil. And if someone, has pain, if someone has, hardship, well, maybe they just shouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's, kind of where that nihilistic worldview will end up. And yeah.
Don't know
Like
who said it, but I
both
can't
said.
help but agree. It says the surest way to win an argument with a nihilist is simply to kill him.
I think it was the philosopher Cambo that said the only interesting question that remains is when do we commit suicide? Something along those lines.
Culturally, right now.
Yeah. And I had a conversation like that, Zachlog, with a couple of women. And I was just amazed. I mean, as she was literally sitting there saying, there will be kids born in poverty. There will be kids born with severe disabilities. And I said, so it would be better to kill them in the womb than give them even a chance? They could be adopted. Oh, but the foster system is awful.
Yes, the foster system is terrible. It's broken. We should do something about that. Foster
It's
kids
run by the government. Is anyone surprised?
No. Foster kids have a lot lower adoption rate, but babies, there are like, I think it said like several dozen people on a wait list to adopt new babies.
Every baby.
Like adopting newborns is a big deal. Everybody wants to adopt newborns. It is those poor foster kids that are, God save them, their boots are already on the ground. They're the ones having the hard scrabble. I don't know. Maybe one day that'll be part of my future. But yeah, I was pointing this out to, you said I was arguing with a person on Reddit, which I realized the follies of my life making that statement.
I actually
Yeah.
get it. I do rather too much of this myself. I can justify it, but it's possible I'm just making excuses for a really bad habit. Um,
I mean, I could do heroin or drink. So I've just, I argue with people on Reddit sometimes. But yeah, made the point that, hey, said, it's like, do you not believe that there's a chance to overcome? Do you not believe that there is value in the struggle? There's nobility in striving against difficulty? You know, are you says, are you such a bigot that you think that a poor person cannot possibly be, come to success? Is just what's wrong with you? It's like I'm teaching my sons that in their life they will run into suffering. They will meet pain. They will experience agony even, and they will learn from it and grow, and they will have wisdom broken into their bones. And by God, I will not let them waste their pain. And so as we go forward, they will teach the same to their sons, and we will build strength into our generations. And then addressing the other commenters, like, and I guess you'll just die? A damn shame.
so, Frank, how about you? Any last thoughts on the Village Blacksmith tonight?
Well, it, like a couple of other occurrences in my recent life, has made me look at things and decide that I want to be a better role model for the boys in my home and the boys in my church group. You never get a second chance with that age. And we almost dropped the boys club Rangers at church about a year ago, year and a half, I guess, and I'm so glad we didn't.
Oh, I miss the Rangers, man. I was a Ranger commander at my church for a few years when I was stationed in Virginia, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
There at the end, the last year or so, we really had the boys thinking about things, and they would ask us these really penetrating questions, and we'd be like, "Ooh, good subject, 10-year-old. Let's talk." And we'd talk to them about stuff that was like, man, I never had anybody talk to me about this stuff till I was a grown man. So, I'm glad these questions are bouncing around in there, and I hope our answers at least, can at least direct the bounce in a good place, into a good direction, a good place. Oh man, I wish the Baptist had a similar thing.
When I was a Baptist, I had something up through 6th grade for boys, Royal Ambassadors. I don't know if they still have it.
Yeah, I have to see about that.
Okay. Well, we probably could go on for a good while, but I think we've had a pretty good talk about and kind of with Longfellow tonight. So, thank you both for joining me, and God be with you.
Also with you.
And with you.
Okay.